Welcome to NTD News Today. Here are today's top stories. Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem briefs Congress on the ongoing threats facing the United States. The director of the National Counterterrorism Center and the FBI's operations director testify as well. Lawmakers are racing to implement a plan to prevent a spike in health insurance costs for Obamacare recipients. The Senate voting today on proposals from Democrats and Republicans, while several bipartisan solutions are coming out of the House. A high-stakes vote in Indiana today could redraw the state's congressional map in favor of the GOP, but it's unclear if Republicans have the vote. Washington state is under a state of emergency following days of heavy rain and flooding. Tens of thousands of residents could soon face evacuation orders.
This is NTD News Today, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Today is Thursday, December 11th. I'm Stephanie Cox. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem briefed Congress today on the ongoing threats facing the United States. Noem's remarks come after an Afghan national opened fire on two National Guard members in Washington, D.C. last month, tragically killing one and severely wounding the other.
The same week, we arrested another Afghan national who came in under the same program. He was planning to carry out a bombing in Fort Worth, Texas. And just last week, just miles away in Washington, D.C., we arrested another Afghan national who also came in under Operation Allies Welcome. That individual provided support to the Islamic State of Iraq and ISIS-K and weapons to his father, who was a commander of a militia group in Afghanistan. Those are only a handful of the challenges that we face and the threats that the Department of Homeland Security stands against every single day. Under President Trump's leadership, DHS is securing our borders, we're restoring the rule of law, and we're protecting the homeland. DHS is eradicating transnational organized crime and the stopping of deadly drugs from continuing to be funneled into our communities. We're ending illegal immigration, returning sanity back to our immigration system, and we're defending against cyber attacks against our critical infrastructure.
National Counterterrorism Center Director Joe Kent and FBI Operations Director Michael Glasheen testified as well. Kent told the House Homeland Security Committee that the Trump administration had made progress against terrorism threats, but Kent said his office had issued a warning on a heightened risk of terror attacks. He added that the Counterterrorism Center had identified 18,000 known and suspected terrorists who entered the U.S. under the Biden administration. Meanwhile, as Noem delivered her opening statement, protesters interrupted her speech. Security then escorted them from the room.
I'd like to introduce them to you.
Disruptions of congressional business is a violation of law, is a criminal offense under federal law. Audience members are advised to take their seats and maintain order. The chairman may now ask Capitol Police to remove and arrest the persons creating the disturbance.
Get ICE off our streets! Stop terrorizing our community! Get ICE off our streets! Stop terrorizing our community! Get ICE off our streets! Stop terrorizing our community!
According to DHS tracking, more than 2.5 million illegal immigrants have left the United States under the Trump administration. The department called it a record-breaking achievement in a year. That figure includes more than 600,000 individuals who were deported and around 1.9 million who have voluntarily self-deported since January. Next, a federal judge is ordering ICE to release Kilmar Abrego Garcia from custody. Abrego Garcia has been in the spotlight during the Trump administration's deportation surge. U.S. District Judge Paula Hinnis says the administration lacks lawful order to effectuate a third country removal for Abrego Garcia. Her opinion today reads, quote, "Since Abrego Garcia's wrongful detention in El Salvador, he has been redetained again without lawful authority." Unquote. Her order requires Abrego Garcia's immediate release and for the administration to notify the court of his status by 5 p.m. today. Abrego Garcia is a Salvadoran native who was previously deported to a mega prison in his home country. He was since brought back and is facing human smuggling charges in the U.S. The Trump administration also says Abrego Garcia is part of the violence MS-13 gang. The man himself denies that charge. President Trump yesterday announced the official launch of his immigration gold card. NTD's Daniel Monahan has more on the policy, which will fast-track visas for certain immigrants in exchange for a large fee.
During a roundtable at the White House, the president previewed the new program.
It's somewhat like a green card, but with big advantages over a green card.
The Trump Gold Card program will allow non-citizens to get an expedited permanent residency status in the United States if they donate $1 million to the country. They also need to pass a background check and pay a $15,000 processing fee to the Department of Homeland Security. Trump estimates the U.S. will take in billions of dollars, which he said will be used to do positive things for the country. The program isn't just for individuals. Businesses that want to keep talent will be able to apply for a Trump corporate gold card if they donate $2 million to the United States and pay a $15,000 processing fee. Trump said business chiefs like Apple CEO Tim Cook have complained it was too risky to hire foreign students without certainty they can stay in the country.
And companies are going to be able to go to the Wharton School of Finance, the Stern Business School, Harvard, MIT, wherever you may get your students, any school, and you're able to buy a card and keep that person in the United States.
Obviously, they have to be perfect people in America, and having passed the vetting, after 5 years, they'll be available to become citizens, and then the corporation can put someone else on the card.
Turning to border enforcement, the United States will soon have its own planes for deportations. The U.S. has agreed to purchase 6 Boeing 737 commercial passenger aircraft to conduct removal operations of illegal immigrants for about $140 million. The department says it will cost less to purchase and use these aircraft for removal operations than to continue using charter aircraft as it does at present. Assistant DHS Secretary Tricia McLaughlin says the initiative will save U.S. taxpayers nearly $280 million and help get criminal illegal aliens out of the country faster. Deporting illegal immigrants has been one of the highest priorities of the Trump administration. Homeland Security announced historic progress in that goal. It says more than 2.5 million illegal immigrants have left the U.S., calling it a record-breaking achievement. Since January 20th, DHS enforcement operations have resulted in more than 605,000 deportations, and 1.9 million illegal immigrants have voluntarily self-deported since January. They can get a free flight home and $1,000 by using the CBP Home app. Meanwhile, land along the southern border is being transferred to the Navy. The administration says it will hand over about 760 acres of public land near the California-Mexico border for 3 years to support security operations. Critics argue that deploying troops for border enforcement violates restrictions on military involvement in domestic law enforcement. The Interior Department says the land will be designated a national defense area to bolster immigration enforcement. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
The Senate today rejected competing health care proposals from both sides of the aisle. Both failed to reach the 60-vote threshold required to advance legislation in the Senate. NTD's Melina Weiskup reports.
As part of a promise that was made to Senate Democrats, Senate Majority Leader John Thune is bringing up Democrats' bill for a clean extension of COVID-era tax subsidies for the next 3 years. Now, Republicans are planning to counter this with a bill of their own. They aim to take the money that was originally granted to these Obamacare subsidies and put them into health savings accounts to help Americans pay out-of-pocket health care costs. Listen to what both sides are saying about their proposals.
A clean extension of current tax credits. That's it. No poison pills, no gimmicks, just relief.
The proposal we'll put out there will bring insurance premiums down. It will be fiscally responsible, and it'll get us away from the practice of giving the money all to the insurance companies and put it back in the hands of the patients.
Now, over in the House, Democrats are also pushing for a 3-year extension of enhanced Obamacare subsidies, but this won't even see a vote in the House. Speaker Johnson says this is why.
There's a lot of people who are very concerned about Obamacare and the fact that the subsidies were created by Democrats for COVID-era limited use and they want to be extended. We just can't get Republican votes on that for lots of reasons, not enough of them.
Instead, Republican House leaders are expected to unveil a proposal of their own. It's expected to be similar but slightly different than the Senate Republicans' version. Now, at the same time, there are also bipartisan efforts underway. The most recent one is a discharge petition started by Republican Congressman Brian Fitzpatrick. He aims to force the Speaker to hold a vote on extending these enhanced Obamacare subsidies through 2027. His proposal also addresses fraud and tries to rein in some practices of pharmacy benefit managers, that is, the middlemen in the prescription drug supply chain.
I think have merit. Certainly I'm in favor of PBM reform, health savings accounts, association healthcare plans, various other ideas. Are any of those things going to become law and help people by the time of this cliff that's coming at the end of the year? No.
You'll see us working pretty much around the clock to try to come up with something in a positive way.
But his petition needs 218 lawmakers to force this vote. And if the vote does happen, it's unclear what the support would look like. At this point, there are several Republicans in the House who are pushing for at least a 2-year extension of these enhanced Obamacare subsidies to make more time for other reforms. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Melina Weisskopf, NTD News.
Thank you, Melina. $1 billion in federal student aid saved from scammers. That's how much the Trump administration says it prevented from getting into the wrong hands since January. The Department of Education says it implemented new enhanced fraud controls targeting AI bots and so-called ghost students. College officials and cybersecurity experts believe ghost students are powered by AI bots or run by criminal networks. They use real Americans' personal information to enroll and get financial aid. Other scams involve using the personal information of people who have died. The department said it's cracking down on fraud by heightening the verification process for first-time applicants. Washington State is under a state of emergency today. Torrential rain has pushed rivers over their banks, leaving residents trapped in floodwaters. Tens of thousands could face evacuation orders. Here's more on the heavy rain that's devastating parts of the Pacific Northwest.
Officials are advising about 100,000 people to evacuate certain areas of Washington state. An atmospheric river is causing heavy rainfall, flooding, and mudslides.
The situation is extremely serious. The next few days are going to be very critical.
The governor says he declared a state of emergency since some rivers could reach historic levels. Video shows water rescues in multiple areas.
I found myself stuck on a little piece of land out there with my 4 cats and had to wade through water up to my chest in order to get to dry land. It was very cold and very swift.
In south central Washington, shelters are caring for some rescuees.
So what we're doing right now is we're providing obviously shelter beds, meals, dry clothes, a place for their pets.
Officials say at least 2 major mudslides have blocked parts of I-90. This Seattle area gas station is damaged.
It's a lot of sand.
And in northwest Washington, sandbag volunteers are shoring up an old dike system along the Skagit River.
At a time like this, it's all hands on deck.
Forecasters say dangers will continue into Friday.
The impact on Washingtonians is significant now, and it's going to be significant in the coming days, and that is an understatement.
And the suspect charged with killing Charlie Kirk is expected in court today. His lawyers are pushing to further limit media access in the high-profile criminal case. Attorneys for 22-year-old Tyler Robinson say they're concerned that the swarm of media attention could interfere with his right to a fair trial. According to the attorneys, Robinson's pre-trial publicity reached as far as the White House, with President Trump calling for the death penalty. The attorneys and the Utah County Sheriff's Office have asked Judge Tony Graff to ban cameras in the courtroom. A coalition of national and local news organizations is fighting to preserve media access in the case. Charlie Kirk's widow, Erica Kirk, has called for full transparency. She says that people deserve to have cameras in the courtroom. And the evidentiary hearing in the Luigi Mangione case resumed this morning. Before the proceedings began, a defense attorney placed a lengthy objection on the record. Our reporter Arlene Richards was in the courtroom, and she's here now with the latest on that objection and witness testimony. Arlene, good to see you. What was the objection from the defense, and how did the judge respond?
Good afternoon, Steph. Yes, the defense got up this morning and first thing said that they had been having discussions with the judge over these last few days about certain items of evidence that could be provided to the media. And she said that there was a video which she called Exhibit 3A. And she said the video was something that was not used in the courtroom with any of the witnesses. It was never shown in the courtroom. And in their discussions, the defense had said they didn't want that video to be released to the media. Well, on the anniversary of the day that they had arrested Luigi Mangione, that video was released. And she's saying that it was unlawfully released, that the prosecution released it because they wanted to discriminate or prejudice her client's defense, and that she wanted the judge to do something about that. She said that, you know, her client already has been in custody. He's been treated unfairly, and now they're putting out videos that weren't supposed to be put out. And the judge responded that he was going to treat this video like any other video. He said that at the time of trial, there will be instructions given to the jury, and that he didn't see where this video was any different from the other. But the thing is, she's placed this on the record so that if after the trial he is convicted, she can get the court transcripts and bring this up on appeal. And on appeal, she can say to the appellate court that she believes that the judge did not provide the proper ruling for her objection.
All right, and we've been seeing hints of the prosecution's case through this hearing as well. Has the defense used this opportunity to lay out their likely defense at trial?
Yeah, all along, the defense has been saying that these police officers in Altoona, Pennsylvania, are a small outfit. They're a small police force. They don't get much action in Altoona, Pennsylvania, and that they responded above and beyond how they normally would have responded to an individual who showed a fake ID. She said that, you know, initially from the time that the two officers came into the McDonald's and thereafter when several more officers came in, which amounted to about 13 officers total, her client was in custody. He was essentially in custody because he couldn't move. He couldn't leave. He couldn't get up. He couldn't reach his belongings. He was essentially in custody, all because he provided a fake ID. Now, she's saying that this prejudiced her client. He was not able to access his items in his backpack, and that no other person that has provided a fake ID would have been treated this way. And she feels as though they violated a lot of his constitutional rights. And because they violated a lot of his constitutional rights, a lot of this evidence should be thrown out of the case, as well as statements that he made.
Now, the witness today was a supervising officer with the Altoona, Pennsylvania Police Department. Did his testimony address the defense's characterization of constitutional violations?
Well, the officer on the stand now is Lieutenant William Handley, and he was the most senior officer on the scene at the time that Luigi Mangione was arrested in the McDonald's. Now, he testified that he normally stays in the office because he's more of an administrator. And he got the call from one of the officers on the scene that they believed that they had the man who did the shooting in the New York City murder of the CEO. So unusually, he gets up, he grabs his things, and he starts on his way to McDonald's. Now, he said that this is unusual for him because he never goes on scene most of the time unless it's something serious. And because he decided to go on scene, other officers found out about it, and they became more curious. He said that he got a couple of calls from some of the officers, and he did not instruct them to go to the McDonald's, but they went there anyway. And he said they have a policy within the station that officers should be more proactive. If there's something going on and they feel that they can assist another officer because the force is so small, then they should be proactive in going to wherever it is to help out. And he believes that a lot of these officers came because they realized that this could be a serious situation and that they all wanted to come and help out. Now, there was another thing that was addressed by this lieutenant, and that was the search and seizure. Now, there's been testimony on and on about whether or not they should have gotten a warrant. Now, he was the senior officer at the scene, so he takes rank over the corporal and the sergeant that were there. And I believe the corporal and the sergeant both had mentioned that maybe there should be a warrant. So he made it clear today on the stand that as the senior officer, he had made the call that it was a search incident to arrest, and that they all stood there and watched the search because it was the right thing to do. Steph.
All right. Arlene Richards, look forward to hearing your next updates. Thank you. Next, we're taking a look at Paramount's hostile bid for Warner Brothers Discovery, days after Netflix struck a deal to acquire Warner's studio and streaming assets. Joining us is the host of the Can We Please Talk podcast, Mike Leon. Good to have you with us today, Mike. And I know you worked at Warner for more than a decade and reported to Warner Brothers Discovery CEO David Zaslav. So first, your response to the hostile takeover bid.
Yeah, Steph, hey, good to see you on this Thursday. You know, there's a lot of layers to this and a lot of moving pieces. For the people that don't know, Netflix, made an offer only for Warner Brothers Studios and the HBO Max streaming service. And that offer was around $82 billion or so and would be controlling all of those assets. That doesn't include the television networks like CNN and TNT and Discovery, of ones of which I work for. They were going to spin off into their own company, Discovery Global. Then Paramount came in, late bid, like you said, very hostile, but offering $108 billion for the entire lot, meaning all of the television networks, the studio lots, Warner Brothers, HBO Max, everything under one umbrella, under Paramount. And there's a lot of layers to it. Why would they do that? Well, there's also some investment from some folks in the Middle East on the Saudi Arabia, Qatar side. And then there's also the relationship with the President of the United States that the Ellison family happens to have. And they feel like regulators will play nicer with Paramount for that deal. We can get into all the intricate layers, but that's really the high level summary. And my takeaway in all of this stuff is that what the president said, he wants to be involved in this. He shouldn't be, but he wants to be involved in this in terms of the way information is disseminated. Paramount already owns CBS News. Obviously, they'd love to add CNN to that portfolio and kind of filter the news the way that network is starting to lean towards, which is within their own right when they make an acquisition. But that's what the president wants to see more of, whereas Netflix is really just for the studios and for the streaming service HBO Max.
And of course, either way, the DOJ and the FTC, which do oversee large mergers and acquisitions, will naturally have a say once the decision is made on which company it will go to. But how involved do presidents usually get in these kinds of large merger deals?
Well, I haven't seen any, but I've seen those two agencies, like you said, the FTC and the DOJ. And why is that, Steph, right? Because there's antitrust laws that are in place, and every merger like this has to go through a lens, right? Like, we can do the wink wink on how that lens is magnified or not, but at the end of the day, you would hope that these agencies truly look at this for what it's worth, which is Netflix is saying that there are things in the space, in the marketplace, that they don't do, that HBO can actually fill those slots. Whereas a Paramount merger, there are things that are in direct competition that Paramount and HBO Max do, as well as Netflix. Obviously, Netflix and HBO Max are two streaming services that are in direct competition. The only difference is that HBO Max still works with cable providers, so you can authenticate that way as opposed to a direct-to-consumer offering. So that's something that could be argued in the legal courts. But at the end of the day, Steph, like the lens of all of this is not good for consumers. And the reason I say that is because if you don't have more voices and more choices that are owning the way information is disseminated to the public, that becomes a huge issue. And that's when antitrust laws were put into place in the first place. So I would hope that the magnifying lens is really strong on both of these deals, because one of them, like I said, has the political undertones, and the other one would really kill, let's be honest, some production companies. The Directors Guild, the Writers Guild has already come out saying that this is just going to eliminate more ability for them to pitch projects to another different studio. Netflix already doesn't like to play within some of the parameters of releasing movies and theatricals within the 30-day window. They like to shorten that. So there's a lot of moving pieces with all of this, but we'll see first if the bid is accepted, and then what lenses the FTC and DOJ put through it.
Yeah, you point out some really stark differences in direction for the company once this all plays out. But what role do parent companies usually play in the editorial content of their own subsidiary networks?
Yeah, great question, Steph. They shouldn't play any, right? But again, and I can draw back on my experiences working at Fox News. I don't recall any time Roger Ailes walking into our newsroom. I've never met the man. I've never seen the man. Not Roger Ailes, excuse me. Rupert Murdoch. Roger Ailes I have seen. But I've never recalled Rupert Murdoch coming in and saying, hey, we got to do this. We're going to have a company staff meeting. Everybody come in here. Now, it doesn't mean that he hasn't met with senior level folks to talk about direction, programming, the political calendar. When I worked there, it was 2004, so we were in the middle of a presidential election, right? So those are things that you would kind of expect, but you would hope that these parent companies stay away from. David Zaslav, you mentioned at the beginning, I reported into David Zaslav, two below him, in terms of working for one of the entities at Discovery that's no longer around, funny enough. And I don't recall him ever weighing in on any of the CNN content that was in Hudson Yards, and we were over on 51st, in Park Avenue. So the role is supposed to be neutral. We're supposed to give that transparency to the news agencies. And the biggest thing is really on the reporting, especially when company mergers like this happen. If you just look at CNN's coverage of this deal and the way it's being talked about, it's very scarce and sparse. There should be more of it, to be honest with you, because that's the network that is going to be potentially acquired in all this and could be pivoting from an overall editorial stance. So that's the reason why they shouldn't be getting involved, Steph. But unfortunately, we see it more oftentimes than not that they do get involved.
Lastly, Mike, what do you expect next in this evolving story?
Yeah, I mean, the big question is what you said at the beginning, right? Like, who accepts the offers, right? We've seen the meetings with shareholders, both from David Zaslav and from Ellison, Ted Sarandos as well, with his shareholders. The president has already said he's met with both parties. He wants to be instrumental in all of this. I think what's going to happen, Steph, I think it's going to come down to money, because it's always come down to money, and Paramount's making a $26 billion more offer. I know Netflix would have to pay, or Warner, would have to pay a $2.6 billion opt-out fee from the Netflix deal that's part of this. That's a small ticket in the price of what Paramount's paying for this. So I think we're going to eventually, within the next 12 to 18 months, see Paramount own all of Warner Brothers Media.
Well, great to hear your thoughts today. Thank you so much for your time, and good to see you again. Mike Leon.
Thank you, Steph.
Next, the Indiana Senate today voting on whether to redraw Indiana's congressional map in the GOP's favor. It remains unclear whether the map has enough support to pass the chamber, where Republicans hold a 40-10 majority. Some Republican senators have expressed opposition to the redistricting, including Senate Leader Roderick Bray. The proposed map would likely give Republicans a 9-0 sweep of the state's U.S. House seats. The new boundaries would reshape the two districts currently held by Democrats. President Trump has threatened to support electoral challengers to any Republican senators who refuse to vote in favor of the map. Democrats only need to flip 3 Republican seats in the 435-member House next year to win a majority. And a new House bill takes a tougher line on China. Congress is moving forward with more restrictions in a defense authorization bill that would deny Beijing investments in highly sensitive sectors. It would also reduce U.S. reliance on Chinese biotech companies.
On this vote, the yeas are 312, the nays are 112. The bill is passed without objection. A motion to reconsider is laid on the table.
The bill was approved yesterday by the House. It includes a provision to scrutinize American investments in China that could help develop technologies to boost Chinese military power. It passed by a vote of 312 to 112. The bill would also prohibit government money from being used for equipment and services from blacklisted Chinese biotechnology companies. The National Defense Authorization Act would also boost U.S. support for Taiwan. The Federal Reserve has approved a quarter-point rate cut in a move Fed Chair Jerome Powell called a close call. President Trump says the cut was too small as he weighs potential replacements for Powell when his term ends in May. Here's more on that story.
The Federal Reserve has approved 9-3, a quarter-point interest rate cut at its final meeting of 2025. The new target range is between 3.5 and 3.75%.
Conditions in the labor market appear to be gradually cooling, and inflation remains somewhat elevated. In support of our goals, in light of the balance of risks to employment and inflation, today the Federal Open Market Committee decided to lower our policy interest rate by a quarter percentage point.
It was a decision marked by unusually sharp disagreement inside the central bank. Officials who opposed the move either pushed for a deeper reduction or wanted no cut at all, reflecting widening divisions over how to balance slowing employment with persistent inflation. Chair Jerome Powell described the decision as a close call, saying he could have made a case for either side. The Fed also revised its outlook, projecting slower inflation, slightly stronger economic growth, and an unemployment rate holding steady at 4.4%.
We are well positioned to determine the extent and timing of additional adjustments based on the incoming data, the evolving outlook, and the balance of risks.
While the Fed emphasized caution, President Trump criticized the cut as too small, arguing that higher rates are restraining economic growth.
He did a rather small number that could have been doubled, at least doubled. And we have to get a mindset that when a country is doing well, you don't want to kill the growth. That's what they're doing. They kill the growth.
The president could name a new Fed chair as soon as later this month to replace Powell when his term ends in May. Trump said he was meeting with former Fed Governor Kevin Warsh. White House Deputy Chief of Staff James Blair told Fox News Wednesday the president has been very clear that he wants lower interest rates.
He wants people to have access to capital so they can buy their cars, they can buy their homes, we can get the economy moving. This is really just a result of, them moving too slowly around there.
The Fed now turns its attention to its next meeting in late January.
And congressional leaders gathered at the Capitol yesterday for a Hanukkah Menorah-Lighting ceremony. Speakers highlighted the resilience of the Jewish community in the face of adversity.
The story of Hanukkah is, among many things, a story of perseverance in the face of unspeakable hatred. It's a story about how the Jewish people of a different age, forced from their land, forbidden to practice their religion, their temple desecrated, gathered to pray in secret, banded together in the hills and fields, and fought off their attackers.
Even in the face of generations of bigotry, bondage, persecution, and exile, the Jewish people have endured and they have flourished. And that, at its very essence, is what we celebrate today, that the light of faith and love and courage and conviction will always guide us on the path to brighter days ahead.
Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer opened the event, calling the ceremony a reminder of how far the Jewish people have come. Rabbi Levi Shemtov urged attendees not to let safety worries overshadow the holiday's core message. The rabbi stressed the need to bring light into the darkness and hope where there is despair. The annual Capitol Menorah-Lighting marks the beginning of Hanukkah. The 8-day Jewish festival commemorates the rededication of the Second Temple in Jerusalem after a revolt in 164 BC. According to Jewish tradition, each night's candle symbolizes the miracle of a small amount of oil lasting 8 days. And the Trump administration is facing a lawsuit over plans to put the president's face on some national park annual passes. The Department of the Interior recently unveiled what it called commemorative new designs for the America the Beautiful Pass. One of them features President Trump's face alongside President George Washington. But the Center for Biological Diversity filed a lawsuit yesterday to prevent the change that's set for January. The environmental group argues that federal law requires the pass to feature the winning photo from the National Park Foundation's contest. The Interior Department has not commented on the lawsuit. Coming up, Nobel Peace Prize laureate Maria Corina Machado says she plans to take her award back to Venezuela. More on her comments on democracy and the regime of Nicolas Maduro. And rising tensions in Asia after recent Chinese and Russian military drills. U.S. B-52 bombers and Japanese fighter jets flew together over the Sea of Japan. Those stories after this. I'm Stephania Cox, and this is World Watch. Venezuelan opposition leader Maria Corina Machado has vowed to return to Venezuela. She said she will hand her Nobel Peace Prize to the mothers whose children have fled the regime of socialist leader Nicolas Maduro.
I am very hopeful Venezuela will be free, and we will turn a country into a beacon of hope. I believe that our experience in Venezuela conveys to the world a testimony that certainly in order to have peace, you require democracy. Democracy is the system that enables peace in a society. But you cannot have democracy without freedom.
Speaking at a press conference in Oslo today, Machado said the Maduro regime was being supported by totalitarian regimes and terrorist groups. When asked if she would support a U.S. invasion of her home country, she said her country had already been invaded by actors such as Russian and Iranian agents and drug cartels. Machado went into hiding in 2024 after Maduro's re-election in a vote widely seen as rigged. Her daughter accepted the Nobel Peace Prize award in her place yesterday. Machado ultimately surfaced in Oslo after secretly leaving Venezuela by boat, her first public appearance in nearly a year. And President Trump said yesterday he would talk to Thailand and Cambodia over ways to end their conflict.
I think I'll have to make a phone call. I was going to say that the Thailand and Cambodia, one of the 8 that I settled, they've been fighting for a long time. They've been fighting for a very long time, many decades. So I think I'm scheduled to speak to them tomorrow and see if I can. It was unfortunate what happened. I mean, I know exactly what happened. It got it started a little bit, but we'll see if we can put it out.
Thailand and Cambodia have accused each other of targeting civilians in artillery and rocket attacks. More than a dozen intense firefights erupted along the two countries' 500-mile border. This marks the fiercest clashes since the July 5th fighting, when President Trump successfully ended the most severe conflict in their modern history by calling both leaders. So we'll keep you updated there. Next, tensions in Asia. Tokyo says U.S. nuclear-capable bombers flew over the Sea of Japan alongside Japanese fighter jets yesterday. The show of force follows Chinese and Russian drills in the seas and skies around Japan and South Korea on Tuesday. Japan's defense ministry said today the two countries reaffirmed their strong resolve to prevent any attempt to change the status quo by force. Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi warned last month that Tokyo could respond to any Chinese military action against Taiwan that also threatened Japan's security. And the trial of alleged Chinese agent Linda Sun, a former top aide to 2 New York governors, has now entered its final stage. After prosecutors finished their closing arguments yesterday, Linda Sun and her husband's lawyers responded. They used this last chance to try to convince the jury that the couple is not guilty on all charges. How did the defense make their case? NTD's Flora Hua was at the courthouse. Here's that story.
The courtroom is filled with reporters and onlookers following this high-profile case. On Wednesday morning, Assistant District Attorney Alexander Solomon finished the prosecution's closing argument. He told the jury it's time to hold Linda Sun accountable, and the only verdict they should deliver is guilty on all charges. Between 2015 to 2023, Linda Sun was a key figure on the New York government's agenda on Asian communities, especially China's, given her Chinese background. Prosecutors say that when then Governor Andrew Cuomo and now Governor Hochul turned to Sun for advice, they were unaware that they were speaking to the CCP itself. Evidence presented to the court, including text messages, emails, and testimonies from government employees, suggests that Sun acted in favor of Beijing. For example, when Taiwanese officials emailed her a dinner invitation with Cuomo, the first person she thought to contact was a Chinese diplomat from the consulate. But the government's email system also suggests Sun never forwarded the invitation to anyone in the New York government. Solomon said that's because Linda Sun's real boss was the CCP. Prosecutors also called Sun's husband, Chris Hu, quote, her money man and partner in crime. 2 spreadsheets, last authored by Chris Hu, tracked records that the government says show kickbacks the couple received from China, totaling millions of dollars. The money allegedly came either from Chris Hu's business in China, which Chinese officials helped cultivate, or from state contracts that Linda Sun helped her relatives secure. The couple also allegedly used Sun's mother, Sun Meiping's credit cards and bank accounts to launder the money. Linda Sun and Chris Hu's attorneys argued the government's accusation is, in their words, far-fetched, like plots from a movie. Here's what they had to say to the jury. The defense attorneys pushed back against the prosecution on multiple fronts. First, they argued that the government relies heavily on inferences drawn from Chinese text messages because nearly all the messages presented were translated into English. They claim the translations may not accurately reflect the original meaning of the chats. They also pointed out that maintaining good relations with the Chinese consulate was simply part of Sun's job. The defense added that New York governors historically have not met with Taiwanese leaders, given the sensitivity of Taiwan in U.S.-China relations. What about the unreported millions of dollars flowing into Kirk's accounts? The defense suggested the money could have been gifts, though the reasons are unclear. Furthermore, they highlighted that the U.S. government cannot investigate crimes committed in China, and this case heavily involves individuals and companies there. They used this point to argue that the prosecution's chain of evidence is incomplete, making it difficult to prove the couple's guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. The defense is set to present a rebuttal on Thursday. After that, the jury is expected to begin deliberations either on Friday or next Monday before delivering a verdict. Reporting from Brooklyn, New York, Flora Hua, NTD News.
And thanks to Flora for that report. Now to Australia, where the teen social media ban went into effect yesterday. Officials are now asking major platforms to report how many accounts they have deactivated. Authorities will reveal the platforms' responses within 2 weeks. The platforms would be required to provide monthly updates for 6 months. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese spoke to some young people today, saying the rollout was always going to be bumpy, but that it would ultimately save lives. Here's more.
Hello, hi, Anthony. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese visited a Canberra school on Thursday to speak with students, a day after the country's world-first social media ban on under-16s went live. And here's what some of the young people had to say.
Snapchat's been cancelled, but I never really used it anyway, and I was honestly planning to get rid of it, so it probably helped me to
make that decision.
Yeah, make the decision quicker.
I personally think it'll bring closer friends together easier, because rather than talking about things that are happening online, things that are actually happening in their lives.
Despite the optimism, cracks in the rollout showed quickly. Just a day after the ban began, social media feeds were flooded with posts from accounts claiming to belong to under-16s. One comment on the Prime Minister's own TikTok account read, quote, "I'm still here. Wait until I can vote." Albanese has hit back at those bragging about evading the ban, warning that such posts only help companies identify and remove them. Effective Wednesday, the landmark law forces platforms including TikTok, Instagram, YouTube to ban under-16s or risk fines of up to $33 million. The move sparked strong reactions around the world. U.S. Republican Senator Josh Hawley praised it, while countries like France, Denmark, and Malaysia have signaled they may follow suit. But criticism was swift too. Meta and UNICEF cautioned over the ban, warning the law could push teens to less regulated parts of the internet. There were also early signs of people finding workarounds, including so-called virtual private networks or VPNs, which can hide a user's location. Free VPN provider Windscribe reported a 400% surge in Australian installations in the 24 hours after the law took effect. Even some Australian media outlets aimed at younger audiences say they're barely feeling the impact. Teenager Leonardo Puglisi is the founder of 6 News Australia.
I know there's been some other accounts that I've seen that have reported that they had a sudden drop-off of, 1,000, 1,300, 1,500, whatever overnight. But I think the fact that there isn't major drop-offs elsewhere probably does reflect the fact that many young people who are supposedly going to be caught up in this ban are able to get around it, which has been one of the big problems with it.
And retail stores have long experimented with pricing, and this may also be happening now at grocery stores that partner with delivery apps. One study found that people who use Instacart were charged different prices for the same groceries from the same store. NTD's David Lamb has the details.
The nonprofit Consumer Reports and Groundwork Collaborative have found that some people are paying different prices for the same items on Instacart. The months-long investigation says that identical items on the Instacart grocery app could vary as much as 23% in cost from one person to the next. Researchers found that basket totals varied by an average of about 7% for the exact same items from the exact same locations at the exact same time. For example, one of the results in Washington, D.C., a dozen eggs sold for 5 different prices, $3.99, $4.28, ranging up to $4.79 depending on the user. The report says that Instacart uses AI-based experiments to test prices by charging different amounts for identical items. More than 400 participants were part of the study, and they shopped for identical baskets of goods from Safeway and Target stores. Target says it has no business relationship with Instacart. In response, Instacart says it uses Target's publicly displayed prices and adds an additional amount to offset operating and tech costs. According to the report, Instacart has said price differences between customers would be negligible. Instacart stated, "These limited short-term and randomized tests help retail partners learn what matters most to consumers and how to keep essential items affordable," and that only 10 of its retail partners are testing prices, quote, "just as retailers have long tested prices in their physical stores." NTD tried comparing the prices of eggs and noodles on 3 different devices from 2 different people on a laptop, Android phone, and iPhone, but the prices appeared to be the same as of Wednesday afternoon. David Lamb, NTD News, California.
And thanks to David for that report. Next, Mexico City's Main Avenue is now awash in red. The country is showcasing one of its most famous contributions to Christmas, the bright poinsettia flower. A poinsettia grower explains the process behind the Christmas tradition.
The poinsettia is a traditional plant for the Christmas season. It takes an 8-month process to grow. We work for 8 months to reach the blossom on Christmas Eve so that people can take to their homes a flower that impresses with the December red and white colors that represent us and Christmas Eve.
Esta planta es un símbolo para todo el mundo.
The flower is a symbol for the world because it conveys love for Christmas, love for what we want and what we believe in. I think that if you put one of these plants in your home, you'll feel the warmth and love this Mexican plant gives.
The Library of Congress says the bright red poinsettias date back to the colonial era when Franciscan friars used the colorful plant to decorate altars. But it wasn't until the 19th century that the flower became known outside Mexico after the first U.S. ambassador to Mexico, Joel Poinsett, sent samples back to Philadelphia. Today, millions of poinsettias are sold during the Christmas season, and they can be seen everywhere in homes, businesses, and in public areas. Next, a rare violin is set to go under the hammer in Paris next Tuesday. It's expected to fetch more than $2 million. The violin is on display at the Art Curial auction house. It was made in the 1720s by a famous Italian luthier. The list of famous musicians who've played the violin to be auctioned is not known, but the auction house said it features a rich past and an exceptional tone.
Guarneri del Jesus violins are the must-have for violins that could exist in the world. We know Stradivarius violins well. We know that for Stradivariuses, only a limited number of violins have been made. There were around 750. For Guarneri del Jesus, it's even rarer than Stradivarius's. Only 150 have been recorded in the world.
One of the most recent violins by the same maker to sell in auction fetched over $4 million in 2022. That's all we have time for right now, but if you have any feedback on the show or have something you'd like to see us cover, send us an email at news.today@ntd.com. We'd love to hear from you. Stay with us. We'll be broadcasting the White House press briefing right after this break.